It's the most wonderful time of the year. Hello, hi, hello, hi, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Wendy Ivy Martinez, also known as the Geek Goddess here on YouTube. And as you can see, I have decorated for Christmas, and I have my tree, my black Christmas tree, which is done, and I literally have everything's like covered in Christmas presents. So yes, I also have this statue of my dog, and then the real life doggy here. So hi, today, as you can tell by my background, or probably you can't, I am going to be doing a cozy reading vlog. We're gonna be reading some cozy fantasy. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be a fun, cozy time. A lot of it's gonna have romance, and we're just gonna have a cozy grand old time to finish off this year. Yeah, so let me show you the 6 books that I'm actually going to be reading. It's these, and no particular order. The books that I'm going to be reading is Can't Spell Treason Without T by Rebecca Thorne. And this one is about, we are basically following a sapphic couple in this fantasy setting. We are following a like really powerful sage or mage. She's like some sort of like witchy person, okay, some sort of wizard. And then we're following one of the queen's guard members, and she decides that she wants to stop working for this queen because she gives no toots about her, and run off with her girlfriend and open up a tea and bookshop in a little town. And so they decide to do that. They run off together. However, being a part of the royal guard, you can't just leave. So she abandoned her post, and it's like seen as like treason. So now these guards are after her. And so that is Can't Spell Treason Without T. The next book that I plan on reading is The House on the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. And in this one, I know we follow Linus Baker, who is basically a part of the department in charge of magical youth, and he's basically like a social worker for kids that are in orphanages that happen to be magical kids. And so he's the one that goes in there and decides if the place is safe enough to keep open or if it needs to close down. And because he is always so trustworthy and he's worked at this place for a very long time, the higher-ups decide to send him to an extra magical secret place, orphanage, with creatures that he didn't even know existed. Will he find a found family? I guess we'll find out. The next cozy fantasy that I'm going to be reading is The Phoenix Keeper by S.A. McLean. This is a sapphic cozy fantasy in which we are following our main character, and she basically leads this magical zoo. And in this magical zoo, there is a endangered phoenix, and she's obsessed with this phoenix, and she really wants to get another phoenix into the zoo. However, in order to do that, she needs some help. So she gets the help of her arch enemy from since like college days to help her try and get this male phoenix into this magical zoo. It seems, again, very cozy, very sapphic, and very, very fun. So I can't wait to read this one. The next book that we're going to be reading is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. I like how I'm like super hyper in the beginning of the video, and then I calm down because I'm like, it's cozy, so I gotta act cozy, you know? But in this one, we are following a witch, and her name is Micah Moon, and in this world, society can't know that witches exist because, you know, things happen like the witch trials. And so our main character pretends to be a witch on like social media. She gets like a lot of followers, but then somebody ends up seeing her on social media, and they invite her to stay at this magical orphanage to help raise these young witches. And she decides to go. Will she find found family? And will she also find a love interest? I guess we'll see. The next book that I want to read is The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. In this book, we are following our main character, and she is a librarian, and at the very beginning, she is forced to leave this magical library and take as many books as she possibly can because they are all getting burned. So she escapes into a magical little town that she grew up in, and she decides to open a jam shop, and also decides to use these spells and these spell books to open up this jam shop. And she also has this little assistant that's like this plant named Taz, I think. But yes, so will she be able to find her own little new home in this small town of magical creatures? We'll see. And then last but certainly not least, I want to read Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, Book 2 in the Emily Wilde series. I read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies last year in 2023, and it was actually one of my favorite books of 2023, so I'm very excited to finally be getting to this one, even though it came out at the beginning of the year and it's the end of the year and I'm barely reading it now. But in this one, we are following Emily Wilde as she continues her adventures, and we see her go on yet another adventure and also take on a whole new mystery. It's a fantasy mystery-ish sort of book, but also very cozy. So those are the books that I'm going to be reading. So if you guys want to jump to a specific book in particular, I will have the timestamps listed below, although I'm probably just going to name it book 1, book 2, book 3, but you'll probably see what books they are at the very bottom. So let's go ahead and get started with this reading vlog. Hey guys, it is me, it is I. Hi, hello, hi, how are you? I am currently reading Can't Spell Treason Without Tea, and I have been on a rampage, on a roll reading this that I have entirely forgot to update you, and I'm like 225 pages in, so I'm on chapter 25, and so far, like, this is giving all the feels. So when I started reading this, right, I picked it up and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so slow. Like, do I want to read something this slow right now? Do I really want to read something this slow right now? Do I really want to do this to myself? So I decided to get the audiobook. I listened to the audiobook narration and like the little snippet, the little sample that it gives you, and the audiobook narrator is like, her voice is just amazing. I loved it so much. So I was like, okay, I'm getting the audiobook. So I've been listening to the audiobook as I've been physically reading it. So I have the book open in my handsith, and I'm also reading along while I'm listening to it. And it's been, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. So in this one, we are following two women. We are following Keith-Anth and we are following Rhaena. Now, Rhaena is from the Queendom and she is the Queen's Guard. And after an incident happens where she is almost unalived by an assassin for the Queen, and the Queen was like, I don't care if anything happens to you. That's when she was like, oh, you don't care if anything happens to me. So that's when she realized that the Queen is a piece of work, and she's like, you know what, I'm gonna run off. So she runs off with her girlfriend, who happens to be like the most powerful mage in the world, and they decide that they're going to settle in this little town where, you know, it's gonna be hard for the Queen to find her, and open up a little tea and bookshop. It's sapphic, cozy fantasy, very much giving like Legends and Lattes energy. So if you enjoyed Legends and Lattes, you would love this book. Like, you would love this book. I'm having such a great time. Like, the pacing, even though like nothing intense happens up until like a little bit towards the middle, it's still such a beautiful book because I feel like it's just so satisfying, you know, like the fact that you see them opening up this like tea shop and you see the books coming in and you see them getting the tea that they need and you see them cleaning. As a human being, that like you almost feel like you did those things, you know, you almost feel like you accomplished those things. So it feels very fulfilling and heartfelt, and I love it. The relationship between Kianth and Reyna is beautiful. It's amazing. I feel like because they have nobody else in the outside world that really truly cares about them as a person, as an individual. Yes, they care about Kianth because she's a powerful mage and she does all these things for people, and they're like, oh, the mage, but they never really care about Kianth as a person. And same thing with Reyna, like, oh, Reyna, she's a guard, she's a really good guard, but not really her as a person. But the fact that they can be that to each other, that comfort, that I truly care for you for being you, makes their bond so strong and just beautiful to read. And I'm just really enjoying this right now. Like right now it's looking like a 4.5 star, and I loved this book so much, you guys. I literally just started it yesterday. But even just after yesterday, even only being like 25% in yesterday, I was like, yeah, I saw this at Target and I'm like, I have to get it because I already know that this is going to be at least a 4.5 star, if not a 5 star. So I automatically had to get the second one. So I can't wait. So I'm probably going to read this one in December or January. So obviously I'm invested in this story and these characters, and this is just exactly what you need if you want to snuggle up with some hot chocolate and a warm blanket in front of a fire. This is what you need. And then not only that, but it rained the day that I started reading this. So it was like nice and cozy and warm in my house, but it was like raining and you can hear the rain on the outside. It was just like the most perfect, beautiful weather to start this book, and I loved it. I'm really enjoying this. So that is my first update for Can't Spell Treason Without Tea. Good and bad news this morning. Bad news, I've been in a bit of a depression. Really bad depression actually this morning, with the whole election stuff that went on. Good news though, my job, being that I work with like political things, we got the rest of the week off. And also good news, that means I have more time to read. One, because I'm not in the mood for anything else. And why is there a what in the world? That's really creepy. Okay, also good news is that I finished Can't Spell Treason Without Tea, and I can read now. I can spend all my time reading because I literally am not in the mood for anything else. I don't want to do anything else. I want to shut the world out. I don't want to be in public today. I just need to not do anything and just rot for a few days. But I did finish this, Can't Spell Treason Without Tea. As you can see, I marked a lot, tabbed it a lot. So I don't know if I explained this one, but in this one we are following two girls. I think I already explained it. Two women, and they're basically in love. One is a all-powerful mage. The other one works for the queendom, but she runs off and they open a bookshop together in this little town of Tawny. This is such a cozy fantasy, and I feel like cozy fantasy, I need more of this in my life right now. I ended up rating this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It's not enough for it to be a 5 star. Like, I cannot put it down, and like when I did put it down, I was thinking about it, so I know that I really did enjoy it. However, it's not like 5-star is like, this is God tier. I can read it and reread it and reread it over and over again. And yes, while this one, it's something that I would want to reread, there's just something about it that I'm like, I can't give it the full 5-star, but I will give it a 4.5, 4.75, honestly. I might even change my mind and change it up to a 5-star. But this was exactly what I needed in the time that I needed it. It's cozy fantasy. I loved the characters. I loved that we got a break from the world. You know, reading this, I was able to really just focus on the beautiful relationship between these two women that truly love each other, that truly, like, they don't have anyone else in the world that's there for them and that truly cares about them as a person but each other, and they have each other, and that's enough. And I feel like that's something that I need. Like, this is what I need right now in my life, is like, when you feel like the world is against you, know that there are people that truly care for you just being you. You know what I mean? And so I ended up really enjoying this. I had a really great time. This just hit the sweet spot that I needed with life right now. I finished this in about 2 or 3 days. I really recommend listening to the audiobook while also reading the physical copy. That's what I did. I was reading the physical copy while I listened to the audiobook. I just love the narrator's voice. She just has this beautiful, amazing voice that she just, like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, she talks just so beautiful. I couldn't get enough of her voice. So I love listening to her, and I loved being able to read it with her because I was able to picture these characters, these two women, more clearly in my head with her voice in them. Each voice, she puts so much emotion when she plays these characters, and I love narrators that do that, because there are some audiobook narrators that are just like, and then this happened. But this woman, she spoke with emotion. Like, when a person laughed, she didn't just say, oh, they laughed. She went, they laughed, ha 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 ha. And the emotion just came through so much with this audiobook narrator that she was able to bring this story to life even more. So I highly recommend the audiobook while reading this one. Even if you don't have the physical copy, I highly recommend the audiobook, because it was just a beautiful experience being able to listen and to read alongside with the audiobook narration. To be honest, if it hadn't been for the audiobook narration, I don't know if I would have rated this book as high as I did. Without this audiobook narrator, this book, and I just read it physically, I probably would have rated it like a 3.5, most like 4-star. This narrator just brought this whole world to life, just brought so much emotion to this story that it made me love this story even more. So 4.75 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved this. And now we are moving on to my next read. I am currently listening to Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. So that's going to be my next read. I have the physical book in the other room. I just don't have it with me right this second. And I'm too lazy to go grab it. But that's going to be the next book. So stay tuned for the update for that one. My first update on Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett. I am so excited and happy to be back into this world. I missed Emily Wilde, and I miss her very like grumpy Squidward-esque personality. I'm excited to be back in here. It's just cozy vibes right away. We are picking up where the first book left off after they come back, and I don't want to give away the first book, so I can't exactly tell you what happens. But basically, we're picking up after book 1, And now we have this new mystery that Emily Wilde is trying to unravel, discover, whatever it may be. It reminds me of, like, I don't know, I really love it so much. Like, I like how it's like cozy mystery vibes. Like, I felt like the first one was more just like cozy fantasy. There were some things to be found. Like, there was some mystery in the first book, but I feel like this one's more mystery focused on unraveling this person that went missing and finding out what exactly happened to her, and then if this has anything to do with fairies or the fae and things like that. So I'm having a really great time. I'm also really enjoying the male main character in this story. He reminds me of Astarion from Baldur's Gate, and like the way that he acts. And if you guys know me, you guys know that if the main male character or the love interest reminds me of Astarion, I'm going to love the book. End of story. So I'm 82 pages in, or 80 pages in, and I'm having a really great time. And yes, it's a lot of fun and I love it. And as you guys can see, let me show you the weather so you guys can see that, like, it's just cozy times. You know what I mean? Like, the weather is very cozy-ish. Yeah, it's very cozy. It's just like the perfect time to read this. I live in California, mind you, so I don't have fall the way that a lot of other states have fall. Like, the leaves don't turn yellow and orange and do all that awesome, amazing stuff that I wish they did. But this is cozy California vibes. So let me show you. Do you see what I mean? Can you see out there? I hope you can see out there. Cozy California vibes. Yeah. Hey everyone, I am done. I'm finished with Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, book 2 in the Emily Wilde series by Heather Fawcett, and I really enjoyed this one. Okay, like, so many people were saying that this one was really good. It wasn't as good as the first one, and yes, I can see why people felt that way. This one, I felt like the first book was a little bit more cozy, meaning that stuff did happen, like action-packed things did happen, but not as much as this one. This one definitely had a lot more action adventure. So if you wanted something that was like super cozy, low stakes, sort of fantasy, this one isn't going to be as low stakes as the first one. This one definitely has a lot more high stakes involved. But we continue following Emily Wilde and her adventure as she tries to find this missing woman named De Grey, who was like a missing scholar who has been missing for years and years and years and years. And they say that she has disappeared into the fairy world, but nobody knows where she's at. And of course, Emily Wilde being Emily Wilde, she's like, no, she's determined to uncover and unravel the mystery behind everything. And the bunch, and then we were also introduced to a list of multiple new characters that I really enjoyed. We also have an extra added animal companion. So if you are not a dog person and you are a cat person, you'll definitely be happy about the extra animal companion that we get in this one. I'm not trying to give any spoilers or something, but just know that there is also now a cat companion. I hope that's not giving any spoilers. Other than that, I really enjoyed this. I loved going back into this world. I loved how do I say this? Like, the slow and fast pacedness. Usually I hate when things are like slow paced or too fast. Like, I hate when things are too slow paced, or when things are like super fast paced and then all of a sudden they could become really slow paced. But this one has, I don't know, Heather Fawcett has a way of doing it that it never disengages you from the story. Like, it's not something that's like, oh, this is so boring. Even in like the slow moments, you still find yourself very fascinated by everything that's happening. Maybe it's because Emily Wilde, being the scholar that she is, she writes everything so vividly and detailed and provides so much information and footnotes into this fictional world that we almost feel like it's real in our minds, if that makes any sense. I really liked it. I really liked this. Definitely did not exceed the first book. However, that being said, I did still very, very much enjoy it. This was a 4 out of 5 star for me, so it doesn't have the 5 star that the first book did. I would say like it's more like a 4.5 star, but I did really enjoy it. I had a really great time. This is something that I can find myself reading and rereading anytime I want something that's a little bit more cozy, but not too low stakes. It has that perfect balance of low and high stakes, and doesn't need action to continue to keep it entertaining, because you still have the information, the world building, the characters. There's just so much that goes into this book that it just feels real, and you know consciously that it's fictional, but yet it feels like you're actually reading some sort of book written by a scholar back in the day. So I really liked that. I had such a great time, and yes, so I'm gonna give this a 4 between 4 to 4.5. Let's do 4.25 stars for now, because I really did enjoy this. So that is my final review of Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. And yeah, so let's move on to the next book. Currently on page 79, chapter 8 of The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. And this is so cute. I'm loving this so much. I really am enjoying this fantasy world. Like, I've seen different cozy fantasy like settings and stuff, but this world is just, this town that this main character goes to is just so magical. Like, there's merfolk, there's like mermaid seahorses, there's like all these different whimsical creatures that are just like the norm. You know what I mean? Like, nobody blinks an eye at these like creatures. Nobody is like, oh my gosh, these are extraordinary. I mean, everybody does think they're extraordinary and amazing and beautiful, but they exist in this world just like regular people. You know, that's like us seeing, I don't know, a dog, you know what I mean? And like, we love dogs. I love dogs, but still it's not something that's like, I've never seen this before. I don't know. I just love how it did that. I just thought that was so interesting. And like, we've seen worlds like that, but I don't know what it is about this book specifically. Maybe because it's a cozy fantasy, that it just feels so beautiful and like heartfelt, and versus like a lot of books, because it's like high fantasy or whatever, you're worried about what's going to happen to those creatures, but in this one, you know that everything is safe, everything is heartfelt, everything is fine in a cozy fantasy. I hope that makes any sense. But we have our main character, Keela is her name, and she works at a library for a spell shop, right? Because spell shops are the norm, but before, spell shops were controlled by the government until it was taken over by ordinary people. And so they started burning all the books, and Keela decided to take all the books in the library and just like dip, right? She left town with all the spell books and a magical talking plant called Taz. I think his name's Taz. And then she goes to this town that she actually grew up in originally before her family moved her to the big city. And now she's there, and she is she's using the little spell books and stuff like that. And so now she's trying to think of an idea of how she's going to make money there, because there's no like additional income places. So she's thinking about maybe opening up a spell shop. So that's what's happening right now. For the spell shop, I don't have the book with me currently, so I'm just going to let you know my final thoughts on this book. So all in all, I'm going to say that I rated this book about a 3.75
Yes, because it was good. It wasn't like the best book that I've read this year. And it kind of, reading a lot of cozy fantasy back to back to back, they all just sort of blended into each other to the point where I was reading The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches physically, and I was listening to the audiobook for The Spell Shop. So when I was going back and forth between those two, the two stories kind of like bled into each other and sort of became one story. And then I was like, okay, what's happening here? And then something would happen in The Spell Shop, and I'm like, whoa, like, I thought this happened, and then I was like, oh wait, that's The Secret Society of Irregular Witches, because the books are just so similar. Cozy fantasy, including like The Spell Shop, is just, it's cozy fantasy. So cozy fantasy is just very like low stakes, nothing too disastrous can happen in the book. I mean, there are certain stakes, but it's not like life or death, something really bad is going to happen sort of thing. And so because of that, it just sort of, those two books sort of bled into each other. And so that's why I'm going to rate it like a 3.75, because I did enjoy it. That's the thing, is I really did enjoy it. I really liked this fictional world that we were in. I liked how all these magical creatures existed, and how they not just only existed, but they were among people, you know what I mean? Like the merfolk and the merbabies and the merhorses and like all these, and then like the cats with the wings. And it's just, it was really adorable to see these like magical creatures be seen as like how we look at dogs or how we look at cats. They're just like ordinary animals that people still just really love just because they're so beautiful and so majestic. And so it was just really nice to see that. I really enjoyed Kaz. He was probably my favorite character, which is like the spider plant. The spider plant of our main character, Keela, I believe is the main character of the book. Like I said, so was it Keela? Yes, because Mika was the Secret Society of Irregular Witches. Yes. Or was that Can't Spell Treason Without Tea? No, I think that was Kira. You see what I mean? Like all these books just sort of like bled into each other. So but I really enjoyed it. It was very found family-esque. She sort of had that, our main character sort of had that curmudgeon, but not as bad as like Emily Wilde, but still was slightly grumpy and didn't do the greatest with people because she preferred to be by herself. She was a librarian. And then we have this other character, the neighbor, that just sort of comes by, and then a romance ensues very, very slowly within these two characters. And so I just really like the found family aspect. I feel like if you're looking for something that's going to be more of like a palate cleanser, it isn't going to be anything too intense, anything too like if you have a lot of stress going on in your life and you want to escape the world and you truly want something that is going to relax you, and you don't want something that's going to be like a high stakes fantasy, like for example a Brandon Sanderson high fantasy novel, or you know, something that like, or like a dark fantasy, like I'm reading Phantasma right now, and that one is dark. If you don't want anything, if you want to escape the world but you don't want anything intense because you're already so stressed from everything going on internally in your mind or any outside stresses, The Spell Shop would be perfect for that, because there's just nothing that happens that's so intense, and it literally is a beautiful fairy tale world that you can truly, truly escape in. So I really enjoyed it. Palate cleansing book, and like I said, very low stakes. However, it wasn't something that stood out to me completely. You know what I mean? Even cozy fantasy, I don't know if it's because I've been reading too much cozy fantasy altogether, back to back to back, that they're just sort of bleeding into each other. But I feel like Emily Wilde, for example, is cozy fantasy, and I feel like that was very separate from the other books that I read. Can't Spell Treason Without Tea, that one did not remind me of The Spell Shop or The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, but it did remind me of Legends and Lattes. I don't know if it's because I read two books that had witches, spells, and magical magic that like those two bled into each other. I ended up giving this one, like I said, a 3.75 out of 5. And so yeah, so that's my final review for The Spell Shop. Started the Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, and I am currently on page 66, chapter 6, and I am really enjoying it so far. And I just like realized I'm on chapter 6 on page 66. And I'm like, oh, okay, that was unintentional. Anyways, so this book is really good. I'm really enjoying it. Like the cozy fantasy vibes right now, especially with everything that's going on with the world, is exactly what I need to have some form of escapism. And I'm loving it a lot. So in this one, we are following our main character, and her name is Micah Moon. I believe it's Micah or Mika. I don't know if it's Mika or Micah Moon. And she is a witch. And so every 3 months she meets up with a group of other witches, because witches are very uncommon and they never meet in the same place at once. And this whole secret society that she's in is called a Very Secret Society of Witches. They meet and they talk about like their witchy things, what they're up to, blah, 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 blah. And it's led by this like older witch named Primrose, who's very like prim and proper and very strict on the rules and everything. But Micah is not strict on the rules. She actually has a whole social media account where she pretends to be a witch, but she's like, nobody thinks I'm a real witch. Nobody really thinks I'm a witch. Like, they all know that it's pretend. But apparently somebody does know she's a witch, because they invite her to go stay at this boarding house where there are 3 orphaned witches so that she can teach them magic. And at first Micah refuses because there's a lot of like magic in the air, and they say when there's too much magic it's very hard to control, and then it's easier for people to find out that there's witches because it's harder to control this magic. And these girls are orphans. Pretty much every witch is an orphan because their parents always end up passing away unexpectedly. And there are witches with witchy parents, but that's very rare for their parents to be alive. So she goes to the house and she decides, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna do it, because her lease is almost up. And so she takes her dog and herself over to this little house, and immediately she falls in love with it. She says that the house feels very lived in, which is something that she's not used to because Mika's always moving from place to place every 6 months or so she never gets found out that she's a witch. And so she loves that this place really feels homey and lived in. And so they give her the attic that has this big, beautiful balcony, and she is obsessed. Like, she is so happy here. However, there is 2 characters. There's one little girl named Terracotta who's very iffy about Mika, and she doesn't know if she wants her around or not. And then there's another character named Jamie who also takes care of the girls, but he's not a witch or anything. And he's also very iffy about her because he doesn't know, like, can we trust her? They have to be very protective of the girls. And then the first thing that she said was, like, you can't keep the girls together because it's easier for them to find out. And then he didn't like that she said that, because automatically he's like, oh, you're telling us to separate the family, blah, 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 blah. And so that made him extra iffy, but we'll see. I think that there's a romance that ensues between these 2 characters, but so far I'm having like a really good time. Like, it's just so cozy and it feels like a nice little warm hug, and exactly what we need to like end up this like darker part of the year. So I'm loving it. I'm like having a really great time right now, and like while I'm listening to The Spell Shop, I'm also reading this one. So I do kind of get them confused sometimes just because they're so similar. Like, cozy fantasy seems to just sort of blend in together from time to time. But either way, I'm really liking this a lot. Like, I can't say what I would rate it because I'm only 66 pages in, but it's definitely very easy for me to pick up. I'm not having a hard time picking it up. I'm not having a hard time reading it. It's a very fast read. The font is a little bit big and spaced out, so I'm reading this fairly fast, and I think I'll be done within the next like 2 to 3 days. So That's this one, The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. It's been sitting on my shelf for like a year or two now, so I'm glad that I have finally picked this up. 204 pages into The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, and I am really planning on finishing this up today. I am really liking this a lot. This is such a cozy, fun read. I love the way these characters are. Like, I love how we have Micah Moon, who is obviously Mika, I don't know what to call her. Mika Moon, who is obviously a witch, so she's basically opening up now to some of the characters and talking about how being a witch, like, anytime she's gotten close to somebody or anytime somebody's found out that she is a witch, they've either been scared or had some sort of reaction. But the most common reaction that she's had to being a witch is like people wanting to use her and like abuse her because she is a witch, and like just using her for like their gain. And so that's why she feels like she can never truly be herself. And obviously Ian and Ken, who are like this like gay couple they're like, I understand how you feel, because it wasn't too long ago that we couldn't be ourselves either. And so I really appreciated that. Not only that, but we just found out that she's Indian, so I also love like that there's a diverse like cast of characters, you know what I mean? Like Ken, I believe, I forgot what he is. He's like some sort of like Asian descent. But what I mean is like that there's like a diverse cast of characters, and our main character is also like a minority, you know what I mean? And it also, so it doesn't just talk about magic in a sense that it's like magic. It talks about it as like, I'm a minority and this is how I'm treated when people find out that I'm, you know, I do this, or that I have this thing. And then following up with like the other cast of characters that also feel like they've been, you know, shut out by the world because of this or that. And also, I believe the other 3 girls are from other places around the world as well, so they're also minorities. And it kind of talks a little bit, has some commentary on, even if you're a witch or not, you're always going to be seen, you know, differently by certain people, just because you are not the color that, you know, most people in Britain or whatever they are, that wherever they are. And so I really enjoyed that commentary, especially with everything going on in the world right now. I really liked that a lot. I love the relationship that is building between these 2 main characters, Jamie and Mika. And I really love the found family aspect that we're receiving as well. It's just a very cozy, fun time. Right now it's looking like a 4-star for me, but I'm having like a really good time reading this. And like I said, I hope I finish this today. Like, I really, really want to finish this today. My sentence got lazy halfway through. So we'll see how that goes. Hello everyone, it is me, it is I. Hi, I am back with the final review for The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. And this actually took me a little bit longer than I had anticipated. The first 2/3 of this book, I flew through it in like 2 days. I was able to read most of it. When I got to the last 100 pages though, I got really busy with life. That it's not that I didn't like it, it's just I literally got busy with so many other things that I put it down. And so this took me a little bit longer, but I really enjoyed this. Okay, so we have our main character, Micah Moon, I don't know how to say her name. We're just gonna go with Mika. If I'm saying it wrong, I apologize. And she's always been taught, like I already explained it a little bit, but she's always been taught by another witch that like raised her that you shouldn't be around other witches, right? Because the chances of you being found out increases, because there's just so much energy between witches. There's like so much like magical energy. And so it's better to be alone. So she's always been taught like to survive, you have to be alone. And so Mika would always move around from place to place. She wouldn't stay in a place longer than 6 months. She would never get attached to people. And because she was raised by this like woman that taught her these things, and because every time like Mika Moon was like growing up, she would have different tutors or like different people that like raised her, nannies, and she would always wipe their minds. She felt like it's best to never leave an imprint on anyone, to never be unforgettable. It's best to just be forgettable to people and not get too attached, because every time she's tried, things have happened. It's never ended positively for her, until she ends up going to this house called Nowhere House, where she basically has to raise 3 young witches. And at first she's very against it, because she's like, these girls shouldn't be together, it's so much energy, blah 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 blah. But after a while, you start to see her really start to love these characters, you know, and then her mindset begins to shift about like, and then it's the whole message behind it is basically like, it's always good to have someone to rely on. It's, you know, like, and that love is always the answer. It's a very found family. These characters are so adorable. Like, the girls are so cute. They're so, so cute. And very much like, I feel like Sangu did a really good job of depicting children. I feel like that was done very well, because me having 2 kids, like, I know how kids act. They're very like curious. They question everything. They copy everything that the parents say or whatever adult is like around them. And they like genuinely feel like they understand things to a certain extent, and they don't understand when things don't work the way that they in their heads portray it to work out. It was just really good. So I really enjoyed the story a lot. Like I said, like, it took me a little bit longer. That being said, though, I had a really great time. I like the messaging behind it. Some of the lines in here were just very beautiful, and it made me like want to highlight some of it. I haven't yet, but just saying, it made me want to highlight some of it. The story, however, I'm gonna let you know now, this is a very predictable story. I kind of knew what was gonna happen at the end, a little bit towards the end, but I knew what was gonna happen. I was like, okay, this is what's gonna happen, and sure enough, like, I was right. So it is pretty predictable. So don't expect anything with like plot twists, something that you're not expecting. You know what I mean? Don't expect like a shoe to drop or anything like that, because that's not gonna happen. But then again, going into a cozy fantasy, I feel like people should know that. So that being said, just remember to don't have these expectations of like being blown away by this like plot twist or anything like that, because like I said, it is a cozy fantasy, so it is going to be pretty predictable. This is more of like a character-driven book than it is a plot-driven book, if that makes any sense. You see the character change. You see her emotions, her brain, the way that she thinks slowly start to shift throughout the story in a very completely realistic way. So I loved it. So that's The Very Secret Society of a Regular Witch.
Hello everyone. So I'm here to give you my update for The Phoenix Keeper by S.A. McLean. I started this today and I am now on chapter 8. So I am 107 pages into this book. And honestly, you guys, this book, I'm listening to it with the audiobook and I love the voice of the narrator. And not only that, but this book is so freaking funny. So we are following our main character. I forgot her name. Ayla. Okay. So we're following our main character, Ayla, and she's basically like the keeper of the phoenixes. And she's also super, super shy. But ever since she was like younger, she's always wanted to work with phoenixes. She was mesmerized by a phoenix one day. So she's always wanted to help phoenixes and like she wanted to help them. She always wanted to just help phoenixes. So as she got older, she went to college and then she ended up getting a job as the phoenix keeper at a magical zoo. But she is working alongside Lucinda, which is like her worst enemy from like college. This woman is like sassy and mean, but she barely sees her. She only sees her like occasionally because Lucinda's like kind of like the hot shot, the big deal, because she runs like the Griffin show, which is where most of the money comes from. Ayla's like, that's fine. Like, I don't need to communicate with her. Like, I just need to worry about my phoenixes. But the thing is, like,
I guess there was like a break-in at one of the other zoos and they stole the phoenix and they stole the phoenix eggs. And so now all of the local magical zoos are being reevaluated because there's so few phoenixes that they need to be extra careful where the phoenixes are because they don't want them getting stolen. They cannot risk the phoenixes like getting stolen because there's not that many phoenixes alive or out there anymore in the world. And so that like breaks Ayla's heart because she's very attached to this phoenix and she's scared that they're going to try to get rid of the phoenix. And so that's where I'm at right now. But this book is so like, even though it's like a cozy fantasy, I'm finding myself laughing out loud so bad. Like the way that this girl, like she has like this dragon keeper that she like has a crush on, but she's so shy and she doesn't know how to flirt, she doesn't know how to talk to other people, that like she like says the funniest shiznit and it's so hilarious. Like I am laughing out loud and even my family's like, why are you laughing? And I'm like, oh, it's my audiobook. It's so good. It's so good. Like I'm really loving this a lot. Like this is like looking like this could potentially be a 5-star. Plus I've been on like a binge with like sapphic romance lately, so I believe this is also another sapphic romance fantasy story, so I'm excited for that too. And like I love that the enemies to lovers here, Lucinda and Ayla, they are truly enemies to lovers. Like these girls absolutely despise each other. They cannot stand each other. So I'm very curious to see how they're going to build that relationship. It is a 400-page book, so there is obviously a lot of room to grow that relationship, but I can't wait to see them like slowly start to bond and like be like, maybe I like this girl. Yeah, so I'm having a really great time. I'm really loving this a lot.
Hi you guys, so I'm here with an update on Phoenix Keeper by S.A. McLean. I am parked, just so you know, safety reasons, but as you can see, I am listening to it on audio. I hope you can see it. Yeah, so I'm listening to it on audio and it is really good. It is really good. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we have our main character, Ayla, and she is basically a Phoenix Keeper. She's so passionate about being a Phoenix Keeper, and like her lifelong dream is to get this other Phoenix inside the zoo too, so that they can basically make more Phoenixes because the Phoenixes are very endangered. And things start to pick up within the magical zoo, and it's so good. Her arch nemesis, Luciana is like the griffin keeper there. And so now that they have another Phoenix, now that they have the Phoenix and they're really trying to get another Phoenix in, she's very like, she has to work very very close to Luciana, especially since Luciana is so good with the press and giving statement releases to get more attention on like the Phoenix, versus like our main character who is like very shy and she gets very bad like social anxiety, so she can never give talks or anything like that because she's just so scared. So it's so good. Like I'm just really enjoying it. Like even though it's like cozy fantasy, there is still, it's like high stakes, but not like high stakes to the point where it's like life or death. I guess technically it is life or death because it's literally like the Phoenixes are about to become extinct and one of their last hopes is like getting another Phoenix in to breed in this magical zoo. And so they're like literally on the verge of being like on their last hope for these Phoenixes and repopulating the Phoenixes. So I guess it's like very high stakes in that sense, and it's really good. Like I'm loving our main character. I love how we are seeing depictions of social anxiety because I can understand, like, even though I don't really have social anxiety, I do occasionally. I know people, including my oldest daughter, who has very bad social anxiety. So it's really nice to see that representation of, anxiety. And also I just love how our main character feels very realistic. in a sense that she has her flaws and she knows her limitations. But also at the same time, her humor is very like almost cartoonish animated. And I love that. I love that because it keeps you, it like literally, I have been laughing out loud. And I said this before, I was laughing out loud a lot. So I'm really enjoying this. Like right now, I am honestly thinking about it's looking like a 5-star right now. It's great. I love even like the arch nemesis is starting to become very like fleshed out and being like, oh, like she has her flaws too, you know, she's a very, you know what I mean, like it's just so, it's so good. Like I'm really loving it a lot, and there's just so much going on that it's just so easy to picture so clearly in your head, and it's just so good. Like I'm having a really good time. Like it really is looking like a 5-star for me. So that's just my update on the Phoenix Keeper.
Hello you guys, it is me, it is I, hi, and I am here with the final review for The Phoenix Keeper by S.A. McLean. So I finally finished this and I actually thought that it was so cute. I have been on a kick with like sapphic romance, and sapphic romantasy has been like my thing. Sapphic romantasy has been like my thing recently, so I really enjoyed this a lot. So if you guys don't know, I don't know how many times I updated you on this book, but we are following our main character, and she basically works in this like magical zookeeper, and ever since she was a little girl, she's always been fascinated by the phoenixes. So she grows up, goes to college, and then she ends up working at this magical zoo, taking care of the phoenixes, because that's just her like lifelong dream. And it's only one phoenix because the species are very extinct, or they're close to extinction. So it's very rare to be able to obtain more than one phoenix in order for you to breed them, just because they have to be so careful with who gets to keep them. And so she decides to enter and see if she can have the other phoenix transported to her, the male phoenix, after an incident happens. And it turns out that they'd let her keep the male phoenix. And now they have to work together in order to make sure that the eggs are safe. And it's just so good. And while this is happening, we have another character who is like her arch nemesis from like college. Because she has this like a phobia. She's very introverted. She has this phobia of public speaking, and this other girl in college ended up making fun of her and laughing at her, and ever since then she's been even more insecure, and so she absolutely despises this woman. And they have to work together for the phoenixes, and it's so good. Like I laughed out loud because this character is so quirky and so awkward and weird, and she doesn't know how to act around other people unless she's talking about her passions. That's when like her happiness comes out, and that's when her excitement comes out. But other than that, she's very shy and awkward, and she doesn't know how to speak to people, and that is told in like such a comedic way. It was so funny. I ended up giving this book 4.5 stars. I really liked it. I thought it was like a really good time. I loved the relationship that formed between these two characters. I like how that was very spaced out so well. Like it wasn't like an instant love thing, a love connection or anything like that. Like there was attraction there initially, but I liked how the whole relationship was very fleshed out, and you see them slowly becoming friends and then realizing, oh, there might be something more there. And it was so beautiful. And it was a very I would say, yeah, plot driven, but it's more character driven in my opinion, just because you see both of these characters change. I don't know. I hope that makes any sense. The plot twist, however, was very predictable. I knew what was going to happen. I knew who was to blame for all these things. I knew the mystery, and I knew I had a feeling, and of course I was right towards the end, and like who was behind all these heinous crimes, and it turns out I was right. Like so that it wasn't disappointing because it's a cozy fantasy, so I don't think it's meant to be, you know, something that's like, oh my gosh. Maybe for some people, if you guys didn't see it coming, it would be like an extra, like, you know, like, oh, shock, and be like, oh my gosh, I didn't predict this, and make the story even more entertaining, but I knew what was happening, and I don't think it's very hard to catch on to the mystery behind everything and who's behind it. So I don't know if the author purposely did that or if that was like an accidental thing. So 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this one. So good job, Illumicrate, for this cozy fantasy, because I really did like this one a lot.
Bad news. I found out that I have a really bad kidney infection, and that's why I've been having a lot of lower back pain, and I've been getting the chills, I've been feeling just really sick and like run down, and I've just been having this horrible pain. And it turns out that's why. It's because I have a kidney infection. So bad news. And so now I'm like in bed rest because it hurts. It hurts really bad to move too much. And even like I'm just in constant like throbbing pain. So I'm like bedridden. That being said, good news. I started The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune, and I am currently 71 pages in, and this story is very interesting to me, okay, because I wasn't expecting the writing style to be, I guess the only way that I can describe it is like quirky. The writing style very much resembles, to me, it kind of reminds me of Brandon Sanderson's writing when it comes to his secret projects like Trust in the Emerald Sea, where it sort of reads like this fairy tale for children, but it's an adult novel, if that makes any sense. So I'm getting those like feels of like Trust in the Emerald Sea with all that. But right now we are basically following our main character, Lioness, and Lioness is this like, what is he, like a caseworker? He's a caseworker for the Department of Magical Youth, and he's been working there for a long time. Like he's like 40, so he's been working there for a while, and 40 is still really young, just so you know. But anyways, he's been working there for a while, and he ends up getting sent to, he's been working there for a while, and he really loves his job. Like he really cares about what happens to the children. He really cares about the orphanage, and he will only shut an orphanage down if it really is like dangerous, because he genuinely cares about, you know, what he does. And they always ask him at the last orphanage that he was with, asks him like, do you know what happens to orphanages that you guys close down? And he's like, no, but I'm just doing my job. And so because of this, all the higher ups get together because they realize that he's a very dedicated worker and that he's very passionate about what he does, and then are like, oh, he's perfect. So they send him to this house of magical youth, and then they're like, okay. He's like, okay, I don't understand how this is going to be any different from any other job that I had. And then once he gets there, he realizes it's very different than any other magical youth house because, one, there's creatures there that were categorized as not existing that do in fact exist in this island. And not only that, but there are a little bit more dangerous magical youth, including the son of the devil, aka the Antichrist, is also on this island. So that was very fascinating. That threw me through a loop, but I kind of thought that was really cool. So like honestly, I got hooked as soon as I heard Son of Satan, Antichrist. I don't know what that says about me, but I'm like, oh, sold. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's suspicious. And so now I'm hooked.
All right, so hello you guys. I'm here with an update for The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. So I am now a little bit over halfway, about 219 pages in chapter 12, and I am really enjoying this a lot more now. Like, not that initially I wasn't liking it, it's just in the very beginning, I don't know if it's because I wasn't used to the characters or the writing style is something that's very that I've only seen in like a Brandon Sanderson novel or like children's fairy tales. So I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about this initially, but the more deeper that we get into the book, the more and more that I really enjoy it. So in this one, we are basically following this, like, what is he? His name is Linus, and he is a caseworker in the department charged of magical youth. And so he takes his job very seriously. He's been doing it for a while, and he gets assigned to go to this orphanage or whatever they're called for the magical youth kids that is very low key. There's a lot of classifications of magical youth kids that he didn't even know existed. So when he gets on this island, he's like, whoa. And one of them ends up being like the Antichrist, like the son of the devil. And then automatically, because he's like, oh, this is a son of the devil. Oh, this is a wyvern. He automatically associates these stereotypes because that's what people and the media and society have told him that these people are supposed to be like. So he's very shocked when he finds out that these kids are just kids, you know? You can't, and it already gives a message that you can't just stereotype a person just based off of what society is telling them, the media is telling them. You got to get to know people individually because everybody is so different. And it's just, there's already just so many beautiful messages within the story that I'm really enjoying. I really like the writing style. I really like so many of these lines that I just want to underline and highlight. So I'm going to have to go back because I'm listening to it on audio. So I'm going to have to go back and try to like find all those lines that I really enjoyed because it's just such a beautiful story. It plays out like, if you guys like the movie Encanto, it reminds me kind of Encanto, the way that the house works and how each room is resembles the child so much. So there's one room that'll look like a forest, and then the next room is like there's a big giant nest because it's a wyvern. So each room resembles a child so well, and it just reminds me of Encanto in that sense, that you have this like house that has all these like magical rooms to fit all these magical children. And I just thought I just think it's really cute. I just really enjoy it. And then there is slowly a relationship that is building between Linus and then I forgot the guy's name, the one that like runs Arthur, that like runs the house, and you see them start to talk more. And then Linus is like, he's such a workaholic, and he takes his job so seriously that he feels like he shouldn't be he shouldn't be attaching himself to these kids. He shouldn't be attaching himself to Arthur. He shouldn't be attaching himself to this island at all. But yet you see him doing so and attaching to himself. He can't help it because these kids are just so amazing. These people, he just wasn't expecting, he had these expectations and he wasn't expecting it to be like this. So he's finding, he keeps trying to detach himself from everything. He keeps trying to detach himself from these kids. He keeps trying to detach himself from forming a friendship with Arthur. And you just see him being very at odds with himself because he's trying to prioritize his work over his happiness. And obviously I don't think that's gonna work out because happiness comes first. But I really like this. It kind of reminds me of the Secret Society of Irregular Witches. But to me, this is, I don't know, this isn't focusing, this is what I was hoping the Secret Society of Irregular Witches was going to be like, because I thought that was going to be more like a found family, and it turned out to play out more like a romance. This one is more focused on the found family, the youth, the kids, this island. There is a romance, but it's not like the main plot line. You know what I mean? There's just so much more depth to this story and this world and this island and the meanings behind it. I'm really having a great time. I really am enjoying this a lot. Like, this is looking like it could potentially be a 5-star for me because it's just so beautiful. It's just so beautiful. I don't know what else to say. I'm really enjoying this. So that is my update for The House in the Cerulean Sea. I realize I never gave my final review for this, so I'm going to be giving my final review for The House on the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. So this book was actually really, really good. I did end up enjoying it a lot. However, it wasn't, like, towards the end, for some reason, I kind of fell off of it a little bit. I kind of tuned out a little bit as well. So I think I'm going to end up giving this book, like, a 3.75 stars. However, when I first initially
finished it, I remember really enjoying the characters. It was very like found family. If you want something that's very found family, very beautifully paced, you know, it's more character driven than it is plot driven. Something that has a beautiful dynamic between these characters, a wide array of characters as well, with different magical powers, including the most unexpected underdog sort of character, like the Antichrist, for example. You would really enjoy this book. I really liked it. I remember reading it, and then like when I finished it, I was like, oh, this is so cute. I really enjoyed the ending. I loved it. Was pretty much, it reminded me so much of like the Secret Society of Irregular Witches, but told honestly a little bit better than that book was. So I'm probably going to end up giving this book 3.75 stars out of 5. It was really good. I really enjoyed liking it when I finished it. However, it wasn't that memorable to me, and I don't know if it was because I was reading so much cozy fantasy back to back to back that it just all sort of got jumbled in my head, or that so I feel like all of that cozy fantasy was so similar and alike to each other that I feel like it started to get a little bit blurry. So this one, very similar to the Secret Society of Regular Witches. If you liked that book, you would like this one, and vice versa. However, this one I feel like was done a little bit better than that one was. So I really enjoy TJ Klune's writing. Probably will be reading the next book in the series. However, it's not a priority. It's not something that I'm like, I need to read it now. But I did enjoy this. So that's my final review for The House in the Cerulean Sea. So we are back. So now it's time to tier rank these books. So I'm going to be honest with you guys, none of these books were flops. I enjoyed all of these reads a lot. However, I do have a specific order in which I enjoyed them, like from lowest, least enjoyed till the most enjoyed. So let me go ahead and show you guys my ranking for that. So at the very bottom with a 3.25 star, I want to say, is going to be The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I enjoyed this, however, I didn't think it was anything amazing. I thought that this was going to be more cozy fantasy and it leaned more towards the romance, which is okay, but not too much happened, which again, it's a cozy fantasy. You can't expect too much to happen. I just wasn't expecting it to focus on the romance that much. I thought it was going to be a little bit more found family. So this one's going to be at the very bottom with a 3.25 star. Going in above that, I don't know if I ranked this before or not, but I think above that is going to be The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. This one was really, really cute. I enjoyed it again, but I kept confusing these two books just because they were so similar. There was just nothing that blew me away about this one. However, I did think it was a cozy, fun time. So I think this one's going to be a 3.5 star, and it's going to go right above The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. The next book that I'm going to be ranking above that one is going to be Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands. This one's also going to be a 3.5, like 3.6 star. I believe I don't know what I gave it at first, like a 4 star, but thinking more back on it, this was more of like a 3.5, 3.6 star. I enjoyed it more than the previous two. However, it just did not live up to the hype or the what I expected from it based off of the first book. The first book was a 5 star for me. This one lacked a little bit. So it's gonna go above these two books, coming in at what, 4th place? 4th place. Now above that, I am going to put The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. This is going to be like a 3.75 star for me. I had a very fun time. This one was a lot more focused on the found family. It was what I wanted The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches to be. And I also loved that we got the Antichrist as one of the main kids here, which I thought was just amazing. And the fact that they took that and made this into like, it's still just a kid and you can't, you know what I mean? It gave me like Good Omens vibes in that sense, where there's this kid and you can still steer them a certain way. It doesn't, just because they have this path that they're supposed to follow doesn't mean that they necessarily have to follow that path. So I enjoyed it. It's going above This one, however, again, it wasn't like the best read of all. So it's gonna go right above this one with a 3.75 star. Coming in second place with a 4.25 star, I want to say like 4 to 4.25 star, is going to be The Phoenix Keeper by S.A. McLean. I really enjoyed this book. This was so freaking hilarious. I was laughing. I love when books make me laugh, and this book made me laugh. Our main character, it has social anxiety, so she's very awkward. It was so, like, they did it in a way that was so cute and cheesy, which you're expecting with a cozy read, right? But it was just done so, like, I loved it. I loved it. It was so funny, and I loved the relationship that blossomed between these two characters. It didn't feel rushed. It felt really thought out, and I loved how the enemies became friends, and then lastly they became lovers. But it was very slow paced in a beautiful, very realistic way. So I'm going to put this one here, so it's coming in at second place. And then at the very tippy top with a 4.5 star is going to be Can't Spell Treason Without T by Rebecca Thorne. This is Tomes and Tea book 1. Literally, when I finished this one, I didn't know that the second book was out, so I immediately bought the second book in the series right away because I loved it so much. It's such a cozy read, and I don't know, it gave me Legends and Lattes vibes, but it was done, I want to say, almost a little bit better than Legends and Lattes, because I think I ranked this a little bit higher than that one. So I really enjoyed this one. It was the perfect book to kick off this cozy fantasy series with. However, because it was so good, all these books didn't really compare to this one. So I want to say this was like a 4.75 star for me. The best one in the bunch. And not only that, but I liked it so much I tabbed it, and when I tab my books, that means I really enjoyed them. So I really liked this one a lot, and it's going to be going at the very tippy top of my stack. So it looks like the two biggest ones, my two favorite reads, seems to be Sapphic Cozy Fantasy. So I might be reading more Sapphic romance because I seem to really enjoy Sapphic relationships, so I need to really start to read more of that because I love it. So anyways, you guys, this is my tier ranking from the bottom to the top. Again, none of these were flops, none of these books I didn't like. All of these were fantastic reads, and I highly recommend them. This is just my personal preference of how much I enjoyed them, from a 3 star all the way to a 4.75 star. So here it is, my Sapphic, just its first two are Sapphic, but my cozy fantasy tier ranking order. So anyways, you guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!